So first of all, let's do a general, like, what the heck we're going to be doing in second semester. So, for example, a battery manufacturer produces AA batteries that are designed to last an average of 17 hours with a standard deviation of 0.8 hours. Quality control inspectors select a random sample of 50 batteries because we don't want to inspect every single battery. So we're just going to do a sample of 50 during each hour of production, and then they drain them under normal conditions, and they see how many hours it takes. Okay. And so what we're always trying to find is the true mean number of hours that it takes, and we base it on our sample data. All right. Do these data suggest the production's process is working properly? So we're always going to answer some sort of question. Yep, it's close enough. Maybe we got 16 hours on our sample. Or no, maybe that 16 hours really means the batteries aren't as good as we thought they were. All right, so that's kind of what we're going to be doing for the rest of the year. So how could the battery manufacturer in the previous slide find the true mean lifetime mu of all batteries produced in an hour? Well, instead of taking all of them, right, they just take the 50, and they estimate what's called X bar. We'll talk about these symbols in a moment. And that X bar is going to estimate the true population mean mu. All right, I would write this definition down. This is an example of statistical inference. We use information from a sample to draw conclusions about a larger population. That is called statistical inference. So we take our sample of 50 batteries, and based on that sample, we are going to make a conclusion about all the batteries. Okay. So let's talk about what statistic means and what parameter means. A sample of households was contacted by the CPS, and the mean income was $69,677 mean income. So this number is a statistic because it describes one sample. So what's important to note is that statistic is a number that goes with sample. S goes with S. Statistic goes with sample. Also, statistic is a number. Sample is like a sentence. Sample is, for this one, a sample of households, right? And the statistic that we got was the mean income, which was $69,677 in that particular sample. So we could get one sample that's $75,000, another sample that's $100,000, okay? All right, the population that the poll wants to draw conclusions about is all 121 million U.S. households. So population is a sentence describing what we're talking about, so it would be all U.S. households. And then we have what's called a parameter. So in this case, the parameter of interest is the mean income mu of all of these U.S. households. We don't know the value of the parameter. So population goes with parameter. P with P, S with S. All right? And when we're talking about population, we're describing it. When we're talking about parameter, we're talking about a specific number, but we don't know it most of the time. All right? It would be really hard to interview 121 million households to get the mean income. All right? That's why we do samples. So a parameter is a number that describes some characteristic about the population, and a statistic is a number that describes some characteristic of a sample. So again, P goes with P, parameter with population. S goes with S, statistic goes with sample. Which ones are numbers? A statistic and a parameter, except we usually don't know it, but it does represent a specific number usually, okay? And population and samples are where you write the sentence, what the heck you're talking about. And we've done population and samples before, if you guys remember. So these symbols are really important, and it's always one or the other. So some people were trying to do all four of these in one problem. That will never happen. You're either doing means, or you're doing proportions, And sometimes you're doing mins or maxes. I don't know what else we would do. Ranges sometimes, all right? But most of the time we're doing means or proportions. And you have to know what these symbols are. So X bar, and I would write this down, is the sample mean. So in that last problem with the mean income, it was like $69,677. That would be the sample mean, X bar. All right, mu is the population mean. A lot of times you also hear this referred to as the true mean. They mean the same thing, okay? Population mean and true mean. That would be the actual average income of every single U.S. household, okay? And if you're doing proportions, I guess I should have switched these around. P hat, maybe we should put first. But P hat is the sample proportion. So this would be the proportion of all teenagers who did their homework last night or something like that, okay? Proportion, it has to say proportion or percentage, and then you know you're doing a proportion. And then this P with no hat on it is the population proportion. Also known as the true proportion. Again, we typically don't know P and we typically don't know mu, right? We're going to use P hat to try to figure out P or X bar to try to figure out mu. You don't want to mix these up. Okay, if you mix up these symbols on the test, you will lose credit. Okay, so make sure you know these symbols. We'll be doing these a lot, so I'm pretty sure you'll get them down. So identify the population, the parameter, the sample, and the statistic in each of the following problems. So there's 4 things you want to identify in each of these problems. So part A, the Gallup poll asks a random sample of 515 U.S. adults whether or not they believe in ghosts. Of the respondents, 160 said yes, they did. Seems high. We'll go with it. So what is the population of interest? Anyone have a guess? Raise your hand. What's the population? What do you think, Mitch? Yep, all U.S. adults. It is not a number. Population is describing who we're trying to find some information about, right? And it'd be the larger group here. And then we have parameter. What is a parameter? All right, so parameter goes with population. We don't actually know it, okay? But it is a number. Anybody know what the parameter is in this problem? What do you think? Yep, the true proportion, because they did a proportion of U.S. adults who would say they believe in ghosts. And the symbol for this is P. Okay? We don't know what P equals. Maybe it's really 50%, and some people didn't want to be honest about their belief in ghosts. I don't know. Okay? And then we have the sample. Again, sample is a sentence, not a number. We're looking for a description. Who is the sample talking about in this particular problem? So raise your hand if you know what the sample is. What do you think, Kelly? Yep. It's the people we actually sampled, right? The 515 U.S. adults that we decided to ask, do you believe in ghosts? Again, it's a description. And then statistic goes with sample, and it is a number. So it's always, usually we know this one, right? Because we actually found it. Anybody know what this is? Scroll back up here. 160 over 515 because it's a proportion, right? So our statistic in this case is actually P hat. The one with the hat is the proportion from the sample. and we got 160 out of 515. So proportions are fractions or decimals, percents. Okay. All right, let's try B. During the winter months, the temperature outside the Starnes' cabin in Colorado can stay well below freezing, 32 degrees Fahrenheit or 0 degrees Celsius for weeks at a time. To prevent the pipes from freezing, Miss Starnes sets the thermostat at 50 degrees Fahrenheit. She wants to know how low the temperature actually gets in the cabin. A digital thermometer records the indoor temperature at 20 randomly chosen times during the day, and then the minimum reading from those 20 times is 38 degrees Fahrenheit. So we're going to go find all of these things, okay? Now, this one is neither p-hats, p's, mu's, or x bars, because we're not talking about means, we're not talking about proportions. What number are we talking about in this one? Minimums, okay? We're talking about minimums, just so you know. There is no symbol for that. So just write min, okay? All right, so my population of interest. Kim, what do you think the population would be on this one? Yes, all the temperatures throughout all the times during the day. Throughout the day. All right, so again, it's a description, not a specific number. And Haley, the parameter of interest. What are we actually trying to find about the population? Yes, exactly how far below freezing, which is the minimum. So we're trying to find the true min temp in the cabin. Okay? So it's a number that we don't know. What is that true minimum? Maybe it's 38, maybe it's 37, maybe it's 40, because maybe our temperature thermometer's off. I don't know, right? And then we've got our sample. Elizabeth, what do you think the sample would be? Exactly. So we took 20 random temperatures throughout the day. Oh. Oh no. All right, and our statistic is what we got from the sample. So Brady, what's our statistic? Yep. So from our sample of 20, our minimum was 38. Okay? That's usually the only true number that we know is the statistic. Okay? Let's try one more. On Tuesday, the bottles of Arizona iced tea filled in a plant were supposed to contain an average of 20 ounces of iced tea. Quality control inspector sampled 50 bottles at random from the day's production. The bottles contained an average of 19.6 ounces of tea. So we want to know, is the value of either a parameter or a statistic? In each case, state whether it is and use appropriate notation to describe the number. All right, so this 20, you guys, is that the parameter or the statistic? What are they claiming, you guys? They're claiming that the population of all the bottles has 20 ounces, right? So is that the parameter or the statistic? This is the parameter that they're claiming. And we took a sample. So what is this 19.6? This is the statistic. Because that 19.6 came from our sample of 50 bottles. All right, and then notice the notation. They use mu is 20 and x bar is 19.6. Okay, they're both means, but the parameter one is mu and the statistic one is x bar. Okay. All right, on a New York to Denver flight, 8% of the 125 passengers were selected for random security screening before boarding. According to the Transportation Security Administration, 10% of passengers at this airport are chosen for random screening. So first of all, are we doing means or proportions in this one? We are doing proportions because it's percents, okay? And then this 8%, is this the sample or the statistic? Or sorry, is this the parameter or the statistic? This is the statistic because it goes with the sample that we did. They claim that 10% of passengers are actually chosen. This is the parameter. Supposedly, this is the true proportion, okay? And again, notice how they label them. So P is 10% and P hat is 8%. So P is the true P and P hat is from your statistic, all right, as far as symbols go. And we'll be doing a lot of these, so you will get good at them.